They weren't home for most of the last one.
I asked him, like, what are you doing?
Mike, can you please
No.
mute yourself?
There we go.
Okay, Karen, it's
They
live
weren't
on
home for most of the
YouTube.
last one.
All right.
I asked him, like, what are you doing?
Mike, can you
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to ask anybody, I think, Madam City Clerk, you have the power to mute all at this
Yeah.
point, right? Okay, excellent. Welcome to everyone to to a special meeting of the Burlingame City Council. Today is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, and we're glad that you joined us. Calling the meeting to order at this time at 6:31 p.m. And let me give the City Clerk an opportunity to explain to members of the public who might be joining us for the first time how you can participate in tonight's meeting.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. There's a couple ways that you can, if you have a comment or a question to make, that you can have those. So what you're going to want to do is you can either email me at publiccomment@burlingame.org and I will read your email out at the appropriate time. You can also Zoom chat. The chats only go to me, so I'll be the one that sees them and I'll read them into the record. Or when the mayor opens it up for public comment, you can also raise your hand, which is a feature on Zoom, and that'll allow you to ask a question out loud. I ask that you keep your video off unless you're making a comment, and mute yourself the whole time as well. This allows us to focus in on the council and their conversation.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. And we will have opportunities. I see there's lots of members of the public who are joining us tonight. We appreciate your civic engagement. We're glad you did. So there'll be times that you can join us in the conversation, and those will be coming up soon. So before we officially begin a meeting after a most remarkable week in our county, our city, and our country for that matter, we always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I certainly think tonight, as we reflect on the words in the Pledge of Allegiance more than ever, how meaningful they are. So please stand and join me and put your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam City Clerk, I will turn it back over to you for a roll call.
Councilmember Coulson,
Here.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Here.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Here.
Vice Mayor O'Brien,
Here.
Mayor Beach.
Here. Thank you for that. Item number 4, report out from closed session. We did not have a closed session tonight, so therefore there is nothing to report. Upcoming events. I do not have any other upcoming events on my radar. Madam City Manager, do you have anything that we should announce specifically, other than actually one? We do have if anybody, members of the public, are interested in learning more about wireless communications and infrastructure here in the city of Burlingame. There will be a webinar tomorrow at 1 p.m. and the information was in our newsletter to learn more about that issue. And I'm sure it'll be recorded as well for folks who are interested. We do have a web page on the City of Burlingame website with more information, and check the city's e-news for details. Any other announcements, colleagues or staff? I do not see any other announcements this week. And we have another regular city council meeting coming up on Monday as well. I'm sure there'll be more announcements then. With that, we will move on to item 6, presentations, for which we have no official presentations tonight. Item number 7, this is the time where members of the public can comment on items that are not currently on the agenda. So if you wish to speak and address the City Council on any items that are not agendized, this is the time for you to do so. Due to the Ralph M. Brown Act, which is the state and local agency open meeting law, we are not permitted to act or deliberate on any matter that is not on the agenda, but we're always We always welcome your comments and consideration of items for future agenda items. And any members of the public who wish to speak will have 3 minutes at this time. Madam City Clerk, do we have any comments that are not on the agenda?
I don't believe so. I just want to check with Mr. Camerado. Is your hand raised for a comment about Burlingame Avenue and not for just a general public comment?
I don't think my hand is raised. If so, please unraise it.
Thank you. Just did.
Thank you for checking.
Okay, with that, Madam City Clerk, unless there's anybody else that wrote in on public comment or a chat, I don't see any other hands raised, electronic hands that is. I will close public comment at this time. And we know that many of you are here for the reason that we're having a special meeting tonight to certainly discuss item number 9, which is temporary street closure for Burlingame Avenue, but we do have one consent calendar item as well. And that is a time-sensitive item related to a letter of opposition regarding a complicated matter that's happening at the state of California. So there's only one item on the consent calendar. Would any colleague wish to pull that item for discussion? I don't see any hands raised here. I'd like to ask if any members of the public would wish to pull this item for additional discussion.
There are none.
Okay. Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as proposed by our staff.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Ortiz, seconded by Vice Mayor O'Brien. We'll take our roll call vote.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Browning,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Sorry, yes.
Vice Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
Mayor Beach.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on now to item number 9, which is another time-sensitive item for which we really called this meeting. I want to give extra special thanks to not only our staff, but our 2 members of the council subcommittee, Vice Mayor O'Brien and Councilmember Ortiz on our Economic Development Subcommittee, who did the lion's share of the work behind this proposal and consideration for all the items we will discuss tonight. At this point, let me turn it over to our staff. And would our city manager like to open it up, or would you like to turn it over to?
I can just give it a little quick intro, and then I'm going to ask Syed Murtuza, our Public Works Director, to give us all the details. So we all know we've been sheltering in place for what seems like years. It's been since March 17th. And for most of that time, our restaurants have not been able to open except for delivery and takeout. Last Thursday, the county health officer decided that starting at 12:01 a.m. on Saturday morning, so Friday night, Saturday morning, restaurants could open for outdoor dining, not indoor dining. We have no indication of when that will be allowed. It is allowed in other counties, some other counties, not ours. So as of Saturday, restaurants can offer outdoor dining, and the council has been interested in looking at ways to increase the area that restaurants can use so that they can make better use of their outdoor seating. Restaurants that do choose to offer outdoor dining cannot put their tables close together. You have to maintain social distancing. You have to go through a whole lot of hoops to make sure that you're doing everything in as safe a manner as possible. And so one idea that was kicking around both the council and the downtown Burlingame Business Improvement District was closing Burlingame Avenue for some period of time to allow for additional tables, not necessarily more tables, but allowing more space between tables. So it sort of depends on the real estate that you're looking at. We brought this item to the Economic Development Subcommittee a couple of times to talk about, and that is Vice Mayor O'Brien and Councilmember Ortiz. They talked about it a couple of times in the subcommittee, including a special meeting that we had about a week and a half ago. And they came up with a recommendation, which is in your staff report, with just a slight tweak for safety reasons. And I'm about to turn over to Syed, but I did want to thank Jenny Keleher, who's the president of the DBID. Jenny has been working quite collaboratively with us to try to figure out what would be best for her members. She did a survey that we asked her to do that is in your packet. And so you can see what the membership from the DBED thinks about how this should all work. And with that, I will ask Syed to go through the details of what the subcommittee came up with just a slight staff tweak. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Madam Mayor and Council, the staff report provides detail of the subcommittee meetings and the idea behind the survey and the details of the survey results. At the May 28th special subcommittee meeting, the committee reviewed the results and discussed a variety of closure options ranging from completely closing Burlingame Avenue between El Camino Real to California Drive to just a couple of blocks at 1200 and 1300 blocks specifically. The committee also explored options to do short-term and long-term closures. And after a lot of discussion, the committee recommended closing Burlingame Avenue from Thursday to Sunday on a weekly basis for 1 month as a pilot program and consider extension if it's feasible and strongly supported by the community. And secondly, the committee recommended keeping Primrose Road and Lorton Avenue open to traffic to minimize potential circulation impacts. And after that recommendation, staff was alerted to state vehicle code that provides direction and guidance regarding street closure. Staff learned that there are specific conditions that need to be met for street closures, and there's no provision for temporarily closing off a street for long duration or seasonal purposes. But staff, after discussing with our legal counsel and other cities, staff believes that a temporary closure for a shorter duration for public health and safety purposes can be justified, and a lengthy closure may require some additional concerns, both from environmental review point of view as well as the code compliance point of view. And also closing the street from Thursday to Sunday would present some logistical challenges for posting advanced no parking signage, and also could present confusion for the public. So staff slightly would like to modify that to from Friday to Sunday instead of Thursday to Sunday. Regarding the desire to keep Primrose Road and Lorton Avenue open to traffic, staff is concerned about the potential conflict between pedestrians crossing the intersections and motorists. There is a trade-off between that. If you allow for those streets to be open, then there's a increased safety concern and for conflict. And if you close it, you can certainly experience some traffic backup and circulation problem, which can certainly be addressed by advanced signage. But if the council is open to the idea, we can tweak this in the field. If we see a problem, we can add additional signage or go either way if council would authorize staff to do that. But the recommendations essentially would allow for safer pedestrian activity along Burlingame Avenue and provide safe outdoor dining for restaurants. And it balances the need of both retail businesses as well as the need for delivery, circulation, and access to parking lots and garbage pickup. Staff proposes for council consideration that closing Burlingame Avenue Friday morning at 8 a.m. The closure work actually would start a lot earlier than that, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, but the avenue would be closed from Friday at 8 to Sunday at 10 p.m. On a weekly basis for 1 month. And as I said earlier, this could be extended if proved successful. The closure would provide for 10 foot of clear, 10 foot wide clear pedestrian access along the sidewalk on both sides of the avenue. This will not only maintain uninterrupted flow of pedestrians, but also ensure continued Americans with the Disability Act compliance, which is needed in order for us to to do this thing. There are handicap ramps at the intersections that need to allow for the pedestrians, the ADA personnel to be able to access the areas. And the restaurants can use a 5 foot remaining portion of the sidewalk combined with a 9 foot wide parking lane for outdoor dining. And that would be on both sides of the street. And the middle portion of the street, which is 20 feet wide, can be used for additional pedestrian activity, and would also serve as emergency access lane for fire department. And we would also have to have additional signage both on El Camino Real and California Drive and other streets that provide entry to the downtown. And most importantly, there are a specific set of conditions that I would like council to review, which are included in the staff report. What the most important, I mean, all of them are very important, but one that deals with health and safety is very primordial for this, which is to ensure that the restaurants, retail businesses, and the members of the public must abide by the San Mateo County health orders with respect to social distancing, face coverings, and also restaurants must follow the county health orders for serving the food and providing the PPEs for employees and provide washing stations for patrons. And restaurants serving alcohol beverages in the city street in the right of way must obtain permission from the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control. And keeping the street clean is also one of the important things to be considered here. Each restaurant that would be using the outdoor space should be responsible for keeping the furnish and sidewalk and streets area clean at all times. And at the end of each day, all the furniture from the street area should be moved out. So it would allow for cleaning operations by either public works staff or for garbage pickup by ecology. And we would like to, when we did this thing during the non-COVID time, Chamber of Commerce took the responsibility for managing this. And this is going to be, if it's going to be done on a weekly basis, it's going to take a lot of efforts and time. And DBID has mentioned they have requested this, and they would like to be, they have offered to be a liaison for this project, and will coordinate with merchants to make sure all these conditions are met. Regarding parking, there will be approximately 150 to 160 spaces that would be affected on Burlingame Avenue and along Side Street at the intersections, 3 days per week. But staff feels that would not be a major concern because there are parking spaces in the vicinity of the Burlingame Avenue, and the parking lot on side streets should not be a problem. But staff can assess that on an ongoing basis. Also, the staff is planning on activating the parking meters July 1st and also starting enforcement. This will help improve the parking management and help increase the turnover of spaces and to prevent long-term employee parking in the core areas. As I mentioned, there will be a significant staff time to do this thing on a weekly basis. This will, if staff were to do this, it will affect our other city services, and approximate cost to do this on a monthly basis would be approximately $10,000 to $12,000 for setting up traffic detours and removals. If council desires, staff can also utilize outside contractors help to do this. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Martuza, for the presentation, for your hard work, and again to Vice Mayor and to Councilmember Ortiz for doing a lot of work in the subcommittee, and the meeting minutes were very helpful to get the full picture. I see Vice Mayor O'Brien has her hand up. Go ahead with question or additional information.
Actually, question. This is for Syed. When is the garbage pickup on Fridays and Saturdays? And I don't think they come on Sundays, do they?
The garbage pickup is for Burlingame Avenue, the one on the city trash receptacles. That's where I'm talking about. It's not for the businesses. Most businesses have in the back in the alley, the garbage.
Right, yeah, not the businesses, the Burlingame Avenue itself, because they'll have to be able to go down Burlingame Avenue in order to pick up garbage.
Right, I believe it happens on Sunday. I have to get back to you. I don't know for sure, but I believe there is a pickup on Sunday or Saturday.
Okay, so we just want to double check that, because if it's closed from Friday morning to Sunday evening. We just have to make sure they have easy accessibility. And then my other question is, and we may want to just look at this after our pilot program, but what is the tipping point for increasing the number of days? Because you mentioned CEQA in the report, but when I was looking at other cities, it looks like San Carlos actually is going to be closing, I think, 2 blocks of Laurel. And it looks like it's every day, but they keep it opened tentatively from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. to allow delivery vehicles and pickups. And the reasoning is, it says, staff believes that the temporary closure can be justified by the declaration of a local emergency due to COVID-19 and the effect on our local businesses. The temporary closure is clearly necessary for the safety and protection of persons using Laurel Street. So we may want to look at other cities that if they are open more than, let's say, the 3 days that we're doing, how are they able to do it?
I can answer that in part, which is
Okay.
that everybody is kind of off-roading right now in terms of trying to figure out how our various pre-existing statutory obligations apply in this situation. I can say that we were on a county call and that San Carlos's view on that was at that time in the minority as to the applicability of the CEQA exception to the kind of closure that they're talking about. But there is some debate among city attorneys and across the state, actually, that's going on about what the appropriate levels are for closure that would clearly be covered under the relevant exemptions. And one of the issues is that the less of a, if the council wanted to close the street full stop, there's a mechanism, there's a statutory mechanism for doing that. You can make a finding that it's no longer necessary for vehicular traffic and close the street. So that's something that we can always evaluate. You could even invoke that mechanism on a more temporary basis if you wanted to do it for a period of, as for example, as a pilot program. There's ways of invoking that whole process and then the city is covered. If it's something that we're doing kind of on an urgency basis, the way we are now, staff's recommendation is to make sure that we stay on the clearly covered side of debatable limits. And then that way we don't have a potential issue, particularly for those businesses who don't want it closed and for people who need that ongoing access. The other thing is that a lot of these things are very site specific in terms of what are the access points for businesses? What is the traffic pattern? How can deliveries and trash and public safety services and all the rest of that operate? And some of those really differ, city to city and block by block. And so you have to make some very particularized findings for your own environment about what makes sense there.
So are you saying then, is it a possibility that we can look at this a little more futuristically if we find, let's say this is quite successful? I mean, this is an issue that we've talked about for years. So it's not a new concept.
Absolutely. I think what's before the council tonight is what to do in the very immediate future.
Right.
And then we can always expand the program, make it more robust, more permanent. And there are existing mechanisms to do that. And then, like anything, one might want to do some kind of pilot and expand or tweak from there. So there's definitely a way to keep this dialogue open. The question is, how do we make sure we're on solid ground in the next month while we, start this?
Right.
And so
Okay,
that
very
was
good.
the source of
Appreciate
staff's recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney and Vice Mayor, for the good questions. Councilmember Colson, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. So first of all, this is for Director Mertuzza. There's an element here about provide washing stations. So does that mean they must bring in outside washing stations, or can their bathroom be used as a washing station? What's the protocol on that?
We do not want to control how the restaurants are operating for their own logistical reasons, but as long as they comply with the county health order, that's what we are looking for. Essentially, there's a place for people to be able to wash their hands, and it's a safe access. And if it's people are able to maintain social distancing, that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for a specific location, either in the front of the building or the back of the building, as long as it's accessible, easier, and it meets the county health requirement.
Okay. I think it would be helpful for the restaurants if somehow maybe, I don't know how to do this, but they had an understanding, maybe Kathleen, I don't know, of the options, like, can they open their bathroom? And I mean, do we know, can they open their bathroom in their service? Is just having sanitizer pump, does that qualify as hand washing station? I just am worried that they're going to have a huge array of interpretation, and people are going to be calling us, asking us what do you mean by this? Do we have any framework we can offer?
I think that the county environmental health is working on helping with that. What they put out on Thursday was not as helpful as one might have hoped it would have been.
Okay.
It was like links to, here's what Los Angeles is doing, here's what's in the state guidelines, but it wasn't at all really specific to what's going on or what should go on in our county. And I think they were seeing, I think there was some pressure to open because other counties around us were opening for outdoor dining. And so Dr. Morrow made a decision to go ahead and let that happen. But you know, for all of us who need to interpret and implement, it's difficult, and particularly for the restaurants, because the guidance is not as fully cooked as it could be. And so we're continuing to look and to figure that out, and we'll share information as we have it.
Okay, that's helpful. The second thing I have a question about is following on Vice Mayor O'Brien's comment about the garbage, which is the garbage already seems to be on these warm days really accumulating and already overflowing. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it seems to be all over the street. Do we have any way to pick up more, or even augment with, like we do when we have the fairs, where we add in the disposable cardboard recology? Maybe Councilman Brownrigg can help on this, but just some additional trash and recycling dispensaries along the street might be very helpful for the restaurants. Just, it's already seeming to overflow. And then Syed, do we still have our valet parking situation going on?
No, we do not have, we have suspended the valet parking because of the COVID-19. It has not.
So if we find out that the businesses are having a problem finding parking for their employees, or we're getting some, you know, feedback that the parking situation is difficult, could we fire that program back up?
We can certainly look at that. We have essentially suspended the contractor from doing the valet parking, but if we have the demand increases, and then we can certainly look at that.
Okay, so it's not out of the question. That's good. And then the next question I have is about the businesses, the restaurants that are on the side streets, you know, Lorton, Chapin, Primrose. Is there anything we can offer to them? And especially, most of them sound like they may just continue their you know, can they still encroach on the sidewalk, one? And two, if they don't want to do, they just want to continue their pickup delivery, but not do the sidewalk, would there be any way to say, give them one stall, like a 20-minute stall right in front of their place? So, because I think the concern I'm hearing from some of those restaurants is that the parking will be packed, and their pickup and delivery people, the people who are just picking up like at Stella or picking up at Park and Howard won't be able to get parking anywhere near and get in and get out. And they just feel like they're getting no benefit. So would it be possible to give them that small benefit?
We currently, in this program, we've just looked at Burlingame Avenue, and but if there is a demand for people to, number one, if I address your question correctly, is to provide outdoor spaces. Most restaurants in Burlingame Avenue have a permit. We can expand that permit to allow that. But for side streets, if restaurants who don't have a permit, they want to place their tables and chairs, we would want them to get a permit to put tables and chairs. For the takeouts, if there are restaurants that are experiencing issues about parking, we can certainly look into the specifics of each location case by case and see if there's something we can do. And I can't promise that we will have solutions for everyone, but wherever possible, we'll be happy to work with them to find a solution.
Perfect. I just think they're worried about their customers double parking and trying to run in and get food and clogging up the streets. And I agree with that, that's a hazard. So if we had to put some temporary, a cone with a sign, restaurant ABC pickup, period, and they drive in, pick up, and then leave, maybe something like that would work. Just something to think about. And then finally, the last question I have is with regard to enforcement around social distancing and, masks and everything. I know we're going to get, and tables being set a certain distance apart. I know that we're going to have a lot of people very happy to have this happen, and we're going to have a lot of people calling and sending us, I guarantee you, we will get picture after picture of people saying, these tables were 5.5 feet apart or 4 feet apart, not 6 feet apart. So what's the sort of enforcement mechanism or the mechanism to inform people that those tables need to be a little further apart? And, and then with regard, I think it's, from what I saw, I was down in Carmel this weekend, people were eating, but not necessarily in a family unit, might be 4 adults eating together. Are we going to be like checking people's addresses? How does that work?
So I'll try to respond to you. It's going to be honest with you, it's going to be very difficult for staff. First of all, this will happen on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, unless we pay staff to come and pay overtime to do this thing. And then also, I think restaurants should take responsibility for enforcing all county health orders, including social distancing, as their patrons will be sitting and doing business with them. So that I think that responsibility should be borne by the restaurants. A city cannot do that.
And that's in the county orders saying that the restaurants have to have a social distancing protocol. They have to have it posted and they have to enforce it. We have over the past 2 months or so been having our police officers go out. There's a couple restaurants that continued to pull tables out and allow people to sit there at lunchtime. I saw that happen many times, and we'd ask the police to go over and remind the people that that was against the county order. And unfortunately, they could not have those tables out. So I think it'll be a combination. We will probably at the beginning have to have our police out and other staff, reminding people this is how it works. But Syed is absolutely right that, this is something that the restaurants are responsible, just like they have to follow all health orders. They have to, make sure they use proper sanitizing when they're cooking. They have to do all of that. And, we have to hope that they are doing what they're supposed to do in the interest of public health and keeping all of us safe.
Thank you, Lisa. That's really helpful. I just want to set the expectations so that as a council person and my colleagues and I, we all know,
we're going to get slammed regardless.
We're going to get slammed for
There's
sure.
no way that we won't get people upset at us for one thing or another, kind of regardless.
Yeah, right. Either way. So
you're not mad at us as council. Don't get mad at staff. We'll do our best.
Yeah, that's the one thing we can just hope for is we'll try our best, but we are not the health department and we don't enforce the health codes. So it's a little bit of an honor system, a little bit of, and certainly if patrons aren't comfortable with the solution that a particular restaurant has set up, it is certainly their prerogative not to dine there or not to come downtown and participate in the dining situation. They can get takeout or, cook at home. So it's certainly a situation that's an optional element for people. And I think so long as people remember that it's their choice to go down there, they hopefully will all be obliged and kind and courteous to one another. So, well, those are my questions. Thank you very much. I appreciated the work for that Councilman Ortiz and Vice Mayor O'Brien did. It was really, really helpful. And thanks, Mayor Beach, for putting this on the agenda.
Thanks. Councilman, thanks for the questions. Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll have a couple of comments later on, but just quickly follow-ups from Councilwoman Colson's comments on hand washing. I wondered if the city, if we've given thought to investing in some of those standalone hand washing stations. Molly Stone's has one out in front. It's actually very effective. It's very simple. And I wonder whether we ought to think about investing in a couple of those for the community on Burlingame Avenue. Has any thought been given to that?
Just a moment.
We have not given any thought to that. The issue is, how many you need, what's the demand, and who's going to manage that. I think staff feels that it needs to be the restaurants that need to be in charge of that. And it should, if there is a general need in certain areas, I think staff can look into that. But I think it's in the context of what we're trying to do is outdoor dining. It needs to be needed for restaurants. It needs to be properly placed. It needs to be based on county health orders. And we do not have the details of the directives, which the county health department is currently working on. Once those orders are really are available, I think then we will have better idea as to what those details are. Until that time, we really won't be able to tell you exactly what we can or can't do.
Well, fair enough, if I may, and I'll move on to another point, but it may be something that the DBID could undertake to offer to manage if we were to invest in them, for example. I mean, I just think having a communal hand washing station, because not everyone will have accessible bathrooms, I think might be useful and might be a sensible low-cost investment. On the question of dedicated parking places for restaurants, I think that is an important idea. And I would broaden that concept potentially. I mean, I heard at the Chamber of Commerce lunch today from a number of restaurants on Broadway and on Burlingame Plaza that they would like also some relief about how to take, advantage of dine out options if they have a handicap parking place in front of them, for example. And so I think what this could mean, or what I'd like to suggest, is that we continue to ask the economic subcommittee or staff, and I join in thanking the economic subcommittee for doing the homework on this, in terms of being flexible with parking places in front of restaurants on these other streets, basically throughout the city. And potentially looking, for example, at letting somebody do a parklet. It's a little awkward with angled parking, but the notion of capturing that space in front of your restaurant so that you can put a few tables out, I think we need to be creative and help our restaurants recover. So I just put that on the table. And then finally, just the question of enforcing. Completely understand your point about not trying to add to staff's burdens. I think it's reasonable to ask the restaurants to chalk X's where they plan to put their tables in front of their restaurant, because that's a fairly easy visual way to make sure they're marking it at 6 feet. So comments for now. Thanks very much, Syed, and to the Economic Subcommittee for the work they've done.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg. Staff, I don't know if you wanted to respond to any of those before Councilmember Ortiz's questions.
Right. Regarding the parking spaces to be turned into parklets. If you're looking at certain areas, which I think because we are doing Burlingame Avenue first time, it's not a small closure; it's a massive closure. We would want to try this out and learn from this as to how this pencils out and make tweaks to it as we go. And I think as we understand more, and then we may be able to look into the side streets, possibly parklets. If restaurants are interested in doing parklets, then we may need to take away some parking spaces. We do need to look at that. It would be, I would suggest, as a step 2 of this effort, and see where we can provide certain things. And we need to also be equitable. If we are providing for one restaurant, then we may also have to do it on the other restaurant. I mean, everyone should be able to have that access. And then we also need to be cognizant of the parking supply and demand. All of those things are. So I think I would like to take that as a step 2 of this effort.
Thank you, Director Martuza. Councilmember Ortiz, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Martuza, I just wanted, as we discussed in the Economic Development Subcommittee, I remain concerned about the traffic impact of closing Park and Lorton. The decision or the recommendation to close those is not based on the vehicle code. It's just simply your assessment of safety of pedestrians crossing the street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and also, have we considered what the, are we allowing bicycles on the closed street?
That is a very complicated question to answer. And just like sidewalks, if you're pedestrians and if you let bicycle be, riding on sidewalk, it creates a conflict. I can imagine Burlingame Avenue when in the middle of the street that there would be pedestrians, and if there's no one in the street or no one in your lane, bicyclists can ride freely, safely. But if there are pedestrians, it would present a conflict. And for that reason, essentially the street would become expanded pedestrian zone and would present a problem. For that reason, staff has not recommended anything regarding bicyclists. But as similar to the previous question, I would like this to be tried and piloted and see what happens. And then we can make determination as we go forward. The challenge for us is that not only we are looking at pedestrians, but also the outdoor dining. We have to allow a 20-foot emergency access for fire trucks and paramedics if there is a situation that we need to attend to. So for that, we cannot divide the roadway with barricades or delineators, which would need to be removed for fire access or fire or emergency access. So we don't want to create too many hurdles and obstacles for emergency access. That's the reason we are not recommending anything further this time, but to monitor and see how it goes and take next steps.
And then the idea would be to have signage letting people know that bicycles, you have to walk them, or would be something of the sort?
We can certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I have some comments on that, but I'll reserve my comments till after public comment. I did have a question, big picture. I don't know if this was discussed in the subcommittee or if staff can comment. And perhaps this is more of a question related to if the pilot program is successful and we extend it or it evolves, but was there any traction among the restaurant community to perhaps have some kind of third-party outsourcing to do some of the collective cleanup and stacking, or does every restaurant just kind of want to manage this process for themselves? I was talking to one of the restaurateurs that had some experience with this kind of street closures in other countries, and it sounds like there's that could be an economy of scale to really have cleanliness and trash pickup and have that sort of managed by the interested business associations or restaurant parties that are doing this. But I was wondering if that was discussed at all. Or
I have the DB president, Jenny Keleher. She might be able to. She's been directly coordinating with the restaurants. Jenny, do you want to unmute yourself and can you update us regarding your discussions with the restaurants?
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
Hi, Jenny. We can hear you. Thanks.
Hi. Let's see. We have not discussed this issue at all. We have discussed the bicycle issue, but we haven't discussed the restaurant, what that means. I did talk to Syed and he said, you know, as of now, the restaurants that have tables out already, they don't bring them inside, actually. They just push them, you know, against their buildings. So, you know, they can figure out what to do with theirs. But that's an interesting idea about having just one company to outsource, one company for all of the restaurants, and that may make it easier for everybody. But I will bring it back. We have our meeting next Tuesday, and I can bring it back to the board.
Again, as a work in progress, you know, if there's traction to try it, and it's great collaboration thus far for sure. So barring any other questions from colleagues, if not, I think we have many members of the public who wish to speak. Let me ask the city clerk, because I don't have visibility on blue cards. Do you have a sense of how many people wish to speak tonight, Madam City Clerk? And what do you recommend for a time allotment, whether we do 3 or 2 minutes per person? Or
I want to limit it to 2. So far I have 3 Zoom chats, but I also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 emails.
okay, great. Then I will get my timer ready to just assist in case you're reading and it's hard to track that. And we will limit public comments to 2 minutes. And we really sincerely appreciate all the community engagement on this matter. Certainly with the business district, the DBID, but there's certainly many members of the public who have written us. We've taken all your comments to heart and great ideas, and we're glad if you showed up tonight, we're glad you've engaged. So I will turn it over to the city clerk to manage this process.
Sure. And again, since some people join late, I just ask that you keep yourself on mute and your video off unless you're speaking during public comment. That way we can hear the council and the staff's discussion. So the first one I have is from Mr. Sam Maloof, and he has a few questions. Where will people park? What about the nearby neighborhoods? Will they be overpacked? Number one issue is always parking, and people do not come down as it is because of lack of parking. How will this be perceived, and will it deter more people from coming down? Traditionally, Friday and Saturdays are our number 1 and 2 days, oftentimes making up 50% of the week. If you deter ability of people to access, it could kill our business. There are many unknowns on how business is going to come back as it is. I personally would love it, but extremely concerned it could be detrimental to our business. What do you know and have studied about walking avenues and what it does to businesses? If you're running to get your phone fixed or pick up something like dog food and not wanting to belabor the errand and know you have to park and add another 15 to 30 minutes to your errand, what happens to those customers? I could see Friday and Saturday evenings and all day Sunday. In addition, if you test it for 1 month, that particular month is when things are coming back. People's habits are being reestablished. How can you truly measure it? Additionally, sorry, he sent a second chat. Where will people park? Will there be Disney type pickup from the places people park? I understand these vehicles are about $16,000 to purchase. Can they be rented and tried? There needs to be a convenience factor involved as not everyone wants to park and walk. I am all for this, but the shutdown has been so detrimental to our business that experimenting at this time could be super positive or even more detrimental, which we cannot afford. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Maloof.
Then I got a chat from Jenny Keleher, who states that they are currently visiting an area that allows for in-restaurant dining. As you walk in, there's a table with hand sanitizer. All restaurants offer this. This can be done with the tables accessible to all outside diners and not the public in general. Mr. John Kavranian has written in. He states, is the city of Burlingame also looking at closing Broadway for outdoor seating for restaurants? We have approximately 27 food establishments on Broadway. And then I will read the emails. The first email is from Sandra Lay. She says the lifting of some county shelter-in-place restrictions, particularly regarding outdoor dining, will most likely result in increased foot traffic and crowd density. Considering that the county health order also emphasized the vital importance of face coverings and masks for the public, it makes sense that the city include a requirement that the public wear face coverings until it is shown by data that COVID is on the decline in San Mateo County. There's widespread acceptance that face coverings are a good line of defense. This would only provide protection, but it would help business owners from having to educate, inform customers without face coverings. I got an email from Howard Wetton. He states, I note that the DBID survey stated that 67.4% of the businesses were in favor of designated areas for curbside pickup for restaurants. Food delivery business is more critical than ever during this crisis for Burlingame restaurants and Burlingame residents eating in. Consequently, if City Council decides to proceed with the street closure, I would strongly urge that the city actively plan for distribution points for restaurant food delivery and pickup at different points on the perimeter of the downtown in order to avoid disrupting this business and avoid unnecessary traffic and parking when it is further constrained from the proposed closure of the avenue. As a first step, I would recommend liaising with the restaurant owners in downtown to ask what their requirements might be for such distribution points. For example, would they need any on-site heating / refrigeration for food waiting for drivers? How far away from a restaurant could such distribution points be and still remain viable? Is there a way to communicate with delivery drivers that food is available at a distribution point? Even in ordinary times, as a member of Teaspoon and someone who has studied downtown and Broadway traffic extensively, I've reached the view that various food delivery mechanisms such as DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, as well as individuals picking up food results in a significant strain on traffic and parking in these areas during the dinner hour. It would be better for everyone, whether Burlingame is open or closed, to enable food delivery and pickup to occur without drawing automobile traffic and parking into our downtown core. I see this as an opportunity to make a material, permanent improvement to the traffic and parking conditions for Burlingame, and one that we could potentially consider for Broadway, even if Broadway is not subject to a street closure. Teaspoon has noted in its own studies of downtown Broadway pre-COVID that parking becomes very constrained during the dinner hour. This will help keep parking available for restaurant patrons who want to stay and eat, as well as other downtown shoppers, and reduce the number of cars driving through and searching for spaces only to leave again shortly thereafter. I believe this would help a great deal and improve sales for our restaurants. Thank you for your consideration. All right, our next email is from Annie Kendall. She states, I am the general manager of the Athleta store on Burlingame Ave. I'm in full support of closing the Burlingame Avenue and creating a pedestrian walkway. It is so important we give the restaurants the opportunity to increase their seating capacity and start generating real revenue. It would be so unfortunate to see more empty spaces along the avenue. Let's help our neighbors and small businesses. Additionally, the amount of foot traffic on the Ave is picking up and social distancing is becoming increasingly hard. Providing a larger walkway would help to encourage and ensure health and safety of our community. Thank you. I truly hope we make this change to help our community recover and stay strong. All right, the next one is from Cynthia. I'm so sorry, Cynthia. I feel like I'm gonna butcher your last name. Calavoso. He states, I am a resident of Burlingame and am writing to express my interest in having the City Council consider the temporary street closure of downtown Burlingame Avenue between El Camino Real and California Drive to vehicular traffic on certain days in order to facilitate the ongoing business activities for residents. It is a wonderful idea to have this take place, not only for the benefit of Burlingame residents and visitors, but also for local businesses who will surely benefit from this through the boosting of the local economy. Fortunately, I am unable to locate the Zoom link. Oh, I did send it after the fact, but I wanted to express my thoughts nonetheless. right, we have a couple more emails, and then people are also saying they want to publicly speak, so I'll let you know on those afterwards, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
Catherine Howe wrote in, she says, I will not be able to attend this session, however, wanted to share my experience as a commercial building owner in another city with restaurant tenants where we have done a similar thing. In Santa Barbara, California, we have closed off the upper commercial area of State Street, a main thoroughfare for the retail businesses, so that restaurants could practice the 6-foot distancing policy and still have the potential to operate at full capacity. This has been a success and has allowed the customers and businesses to come back together in a near full capacity environment. Restaurants on side streets have been granted sidewalk use permission, as well as some portions of parking lots as a temporary solution. The weather, of course, allows for this at this time of year, and many are planning for provisions of shade and protection as the weather may, of course, change. With all this in mind, it is at least a first step that will provide immediate capacity and solve business and consumer needs. Happy to make any connections necessary between the city to share further. And then the last one I have is from Nicholas Dellis. He says, we are Nick and Stephanie Dellis, residents, property owners, and have a local business. We would like to provide the following comments. As active participants of the successful streetscape project of the beautification of Burlingame Avenue, and years before of the new Safeway project and development of Primrose Road, we highly support this proposal. Support for this action, we recall, is in the original plans during streetscape to eventually close Burlingame Avenue to traffic with the goal to make it a destination strictly for pedestrian activity and safe outdoor pollution-free dining. Now more than ever is the right to test this concept. We are proud how our city is currently working together with all the residents and merchants to bring back the economic growth to our downtown area. This test hopefully will be very successful and will allow the city to move forward with the next phase of streetscape for Howard Avenue and the surrounding side streets. All right, and then Jan Robertson said she would love to see our restaurants prosper, and she thinks that this seems like a great idea to facilitate that. And then we have hands up from both Peter Camarado and Warren Goodrich.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We appreciate that. Let's go, Mr. Camarado. If you would like to speak, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council, staff, supporting staff. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see our city pivot so quickly with the landscaping changing so dramatically. I'm very happy to be involved and a part of this change. I'm mostly happy for the business owners on Burlingame Avenue. It's been very tough for them, and I think we all share the hope that we don't lose any businesses and that our actions today will in fact help most of them remain. So I wanted to thank you all very much. I know that's been very trying. You've been putting up with a few of my emails, and everybody's been a good sport about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camarado. We appreciate that. Next up, we'll have Mr. Goodrich as well, but I want to remind members of the public, if you're with us and you would like to speak for yourself, you can use your raise hand feature. If you click on participant window and you can do raise hand, or if you're dialing in, you can dial *9 on your telephone, and that will alert us that you'd like to make a public comment. So Mr. Goodrich, go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council. My name is Warren Goodrich. I'm a resident of Burlingame and a member of the city's BPAC. And on behalf of the BPAC, I just wanted to voice how excited we are for this pilot program on the Avenue. We strongly support more access for residents to safe, slowed streets. And there's no better location than the Avenue for a safe street plaza, really, every weekend as summer starts. And the BPAC is happy to make suggestions to staff for community engagement and messaging in any way that we can help. And we want to commend staff for the successful communication via Nextdoor and e-news regarding the city's other pilot street closure on Carolyn. We also commend council for the great success of that pilot program lots of families and everyone are out enjoying riding, rolling, walking, running on that closed stretch of pavement. And finally, the BPAC will continue to be out in the community and on the avenue observing and listening to residents. And we look forward to sharing what we find at future meetings, both of the Teaspoon and of council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich. We appreciate your comment. I'm looking for any other members of the public who have their hands raised or who have dialed *9 on their telephones. And I don't see any here. I'll do oh wait, I do see Jen Robertson as well. Madam City Clerk, do we have any others that you see?
Nope.
Jen Robertson, go ahead, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Jan Robertson. I'm a longtime 22-year plus resident of Burlingame, live in the Easton Addition. And my husband and I and our family think this is a wonderful idea. And we love the idea of closing off the avenue to traffic and letting our restaurants expand out on the street. And I was so happy to see it on Nextdoor, all the conversations, and most of I sort of took a soft poll. Most of the comments on Nextdoor discussion seemed to be overwhelmingly positive. There were 1 or 2 questions about ADA and access, and I'm sure those can be solved. But I really appreciate the council taking up this issue, and we're wholly supportive of it. So thank you very much to the council and everyone else who's been involved in this.
Thank you for your comment and for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
All right, Madam City Clerk, if you see no other public comments, I will go ahead and check with you and then close.
That's it.
All right.
Madam Mayor, just before you close public comment, would it be all right if I asked a question of Mr. Goodrich representing the BPAC?
As long as that's procedurally okay with me, it's okay with me. Go ahead. Is that, Madam City Attorney, is that all right if we ask a member of the public at this point?
That is A-okay.
All right, go ahead.
Well, if Mr. Goodrich is still on, I guess I was curious, this issue that Councilman Ortiz raised and I've been wrestling with, the question about cross traffic on Lorton and Primrose, and whether we ought to allow it in terms of circulation or deny it in terms of pedestrian safety, which is where staff, I think, came down on it. And I just wondered if BPAC had a point of view about that question.
Sorry, hi. I apologize. I missed the very first part of your question.
So thanks. So my question was whether you and I won't make you speak for BPAC, but you are a BPAC member. This question of cross traffic at Lorton and Primrose, whether we ought to allow traffic to continue to go across Burlingame Avenue in terms of promoting circulation and parking and so forth, or block it in terms of pedestrian safety, which is staff's, I think, close call, but that was the way they came down on it. And I wondered if you had a point of view on that question.
I think we would leave that to staff as, the engineers to know traffic control and congestion and whatnot. Certainly, we're just excited as a BPAC for an open pedestrian, safe street that extends all the way across. And obviously it's a pilot program, so the city can make adjustments as needed if the congestion of traffic flow becomes too much. But that would be, sort of beyond our purview, if you will.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich, and thanks for the question, Councilmember Brownrigg. So at this point, I'm going to check with the city clerk, and if there's no other public comments, I'll close it.
Nope, no more.
All right, thank you. And thanks for BPAC for their engagement. Actually, I did want to also commend staff and appreciate Director Bertuzzo's comment about, and Councilmember Ortiz's question about cyclists. And I think it's a wise decision. I do support staff's recommendation to kind of wait and see, to see how it goes and then make adjustments as needed. It seems to me that mixed use paths are something that are dealt with in a, frequently throughout the world and throughout various cities where you have cyclists and pedestrians always get the right of way. But I think it'll be interesting to see how people use courtesy and common sense, and then we'll figure out if there have to be additional restrictions. Because I could certainly imagine when streets are empty and there's plenty of passage room, if people want to get their coffee in them early in the morning, or it's free and clear, that it seems reasonable that you could ride your bicycle down the middle of the avenue, just as we would allow emergency vehicles. But pedestrians get the right of way, and we certainly wouldn't allow cyclists to ride on sidewalks. But I think the wait and see approach, as Director Matuza suggested, or at least that's what I thought I heard, it seems reasonable. And so with that, do we have any other sort of closing comments, or give staff an opportunity for if there's anything that they would particularly like to address that came up during public comment, or any colleagues would like to further tease out issues that surfaced during public comment? I see Madam City Attorney, did you have one?
Yes, and this is just a minor note, but I thought I'd get it out of the way now so it doesn't trip up your discussion later. If the council is going to decide to go forward with this, we just want to make sure that in your motion, in order to comply with the vehicle code, you make a finding that the closure is necessary for the public health and safety of the people who will be using the street. We just need to make that finding in the record as part of your action tonight if you decide to go forward. If you don't, obviously, never mind. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Are there other, I know there's a whole list of staff recommendations for the conditions. Are those considered findings we have to articulate as well, or is that just the one particular finding you recommend we strongly consider calling out?
You don't need to make those as specific findings for legal reasons, but they're helpful as direction for staff. So if you don't agree with staff's recommendation on something, or if you want us to look into an alternative direction, then it would be helpful to state that in your action. The one thing that has to be in your motion is that finding about public safety.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I did have one, now that we're bringing that up, my one question that came up during public comment is that issue of face coverings. And I'm sorry, I haven't studied the health order as in regard to outdoor dining or dining in restaurants, but is there a regulation that the county health department has ordered for, obviously when you're eating, you can't have your face mask on, but is it technically a rule if people are out and about and around on the avenue that they should be wearing face coverings, or is that something we need to tease out here tonight?
The default rule is that if you can't maintain the adequate social distance from people, or if you have obviously any issues of your own where you need to be taking additional precautions, then you should have a face covering when you're in public. We're anticipating that it may be difficult for people realistically during a Friday night summer closure on the avenue to keep that 6 feet between themselves and both seated diners and other pedestrians. So it is good guidance for folks to have that face covering on. That does not have to be a formal part of your motion tonight, but it is something that the county order itself would require directly.
Okay. I think we've all learned that face coverings are certainly highly recommended, and there's certainly instances that some people can't wear them for one reason or another that are very legitimate. But it would be strongly and highly encouraged whenever people are out and about to wear them whenever possible. Thank you for that. Okay, I see Councilmember Coulson, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I'm going to defer to, I think, a member of the public, Elisa Ferrari, who raised her hand. I think we want to finish those comments off first. Is public comment closed, or is she still able to comment? I see her hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did close public comment. I'm going to defer to the city attorney about procedure on that. We gave a couple of last calls.
You can reopen if you wish to. That's at the chair's discretion.
Okay, then I'm going to use my discretion at this point. This will be the last call for public comment. So if there's anybody else who wishes to speak, think about it now and raise your hand in the next 2 minutes so I can call on you. But we'll go ahead and let Ms. Ferrari speak. Thank you very much. You've got 2 minutes. Are you still with us?
I'm here. I was muted. The protocol from the county for restaurants is that you must wear a mask inside of a restaurant unless you're seated at a table eating and drinking. When you get up from the table to use the restroom or wash your hands, you must have a mask on. I know in San Carlos over the weekend, there were some issues with folks not wanting to, feeling it was their right that they didn't have to. But as a restaurant, we are required to monitor that and police that.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And I'm sorry that restaurants are, the nature of the beast right now is an enforcement role, but it's so important, and appreciate the insight. Thank you for that. All right.
We have another one as well. Kristen Mott would like to speak.
Sure. Ms. Mott, go ahead. You've got 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the small business owners who were not restaurants have been heard, because my concern is, it's extremely important, I think, for a lot of the residents that we're able to run errands on the avenue, park very quickly and close by, and I'm concerned about any loss of income or loss of, essentially using their services and using their businesses if there's not parking right on the Ave. So have those people been heard?
Thank you for your question. After we close public comment, we'll give staff the opportunity to explain some of the outreach and the discussion among all kinds of businesses. We certainly appreciate your concern and input. With that, Madam City Clerk, do we have any other members of the public who wish to speak?
I don't have any more. I don't see anyone with their hand up or chatting me, so we're good.
Okay, thanks. So with that, maybe we should pass that to the economic development team, or Mr. Director Bertuzza, if you'd like to address as far as the outreach to answer that question for the public. And we certainly had a survey part of the staff report as well of other businesses that were outreached in consideration of this proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, staff immediately when we became aware that City Council will be holding a special meeting, staff sent out notification to all businesses in the commercial areas to inform them about this meeting, to participate tonight's meeting, and also provided them the details about the purpose of this meeting. And also my understanding is Ms. Keleher has also did the survey, and she had received comments from non-restaurant businesses on the avenue as well as the entire downtown area that provided some additional feedback. So.
Thank you for that. Okay, so now that public comment is officially closed, we are moving on to final comments from council colleagues or deliberations. So we'll start with Councilmember Coulson.
So I just had a quick question, Syed, which is the side streets that we're going to continue to have from what I saw on the map, it looks like on the picture you sent in, it looks like they're going to have through traffic through on Park and Lorton. But you said you were going to do traffic control, it sounds like at the beginning of the block. So is that just, so people still can park on those streets, correct?
Yes, so just to explain the traffic road closure.
Director Bertuzza, I don't know if it's possible, but there's a terrific graphic in the meeting packet. Is that, if it's not readily available for screen share, don't worry about it, but is it easy to bring up at this point? No?
I have to check with Megan to see if she can.
Okay. No worries. I was just thinking of some people are I'm super visual, so I'd but no problem. We can talk through.
Wait, I can find it. I've got it.
Okay. I can't share my screen on that one. Sorry, Madam Mayor, but while we have this moment, there was a question that slipped through that Saya can also answer. There, Lisa has it.
Yay.
Let's see the question.
Is that what you're talking about?
Sorry, so another question, Syed, was that about cross streets. Are cross streets closed for street festivals?
Yes, they are. They are closed for, this closure will be similar to the Burlingame Festival on Burlingame Avenue, where all cross streets are closed. So this will be essentially the same way. Regarding the parking on cross streets that was asked by Councilmember Coulson. So traffic will be diverted. If you look at north of Burlingame Avenue, traffic coming from Primrose Road or Chapin that will come towards Burlingame Avenue. The detour sign will be placed right at Donnelly for traffic for people who want it for circulation purposes. And people can still park on Primrose Road. And there is a parking lot right at Donnelly and there are two parking lots, parking lot C and D. People can use those two parking lots. And there's also access in the back in the alley where people can do takeouts and pickups right there. There is also an alley right at Primrose, just between between Donnelly and Birmingham Avenue, where that alley will allow circulation in the parking lot back and forth. And on Lorton, I want to go on to Lorton. When traffic is coming southbound from California Drive past the roundabout, they can be detoured onto Donnelly to make right. And there will be parking, there will be access available for the traffic to park at the parking lot at Lot D at the corner across the street from El Fornillo. And in this south of Burlingame Avenue, the traffic closure will be right after the driveways at parking lot, where traffic coming in, they can enter into the parking lots, either park or they need to drive through, circulate, they can circulate outside through the parking lot driveways, either on Park Road or Primrose Road. And all these parking lots behind the avenue next to City Hall Lane will all be accessible. Or people can park there and take out and do the delivery or takeouts from those locations. And let's see, I think that's pretty much it. Did I answer your question, Councilman Posey?
Yes, and the only other question that I would have is, so we're still not enforcing parking downtown right now. And if we're going to implement this, does it make sense to begin to enforce parking so people will only park for 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever, and then start flipping that?
So if I may, in your staff report today, it asks you to bless us starting the meters up again on July 1st. At our last council meeting, you did mention that people were squatting on the Ave and that a lot of that was employees in the stores. And so I asked the police chief if he could go ahead and have his parking enforcement officers start to let people know with warnings that 2 hours was the limit. Not to do tickets right away because it's been such a long time that would be a little bit of a shock to folks. So they were starting with warnings and then they'll start the ticketing in the future. But assuming you agree, we'll start the meters again on July 1st.
Okay, that's sensible to me and would be a good offset for when this is closed to allow people to, to turn those spaces over so people aren't just parking there all day long. Great. So I guess I'll go first. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for putting this together. I've been asking for a review of this for the past couple months, and I know I've had hundreds of emails and comments from people and support, including my phone starting ringing this morning at 5 a.m. from people pinging me, with a variety of opinions, but generally overwhelmingly, I would say 80 to 90% in support of closing down the avenue. My kids go to school in a college town that has a 10 block from the Capitol to the college to completely shut down to all through traffic 24/7. It's got barely any vacancies. It is a vibrant community of restaurants and shopping and amazing experience and bikers. It's just a really, when you go there, you get a little jealous. You're like, wow, this is amazing. It's so fun. And it actually seems to really create a vibrancy around the businesses. So I hope our retailers, like our associate at the Athleta store or Lulu, whichever one, I think it was Athleta, said, I think this will bring people down to the downtown, and that will start the shopping, the catalyst for people window shopping and going online and maybe even calling in and ordering for curbside pickup, which, I hope all the retailers do put in their window curbside pickup available. and put some cute, good things in the windows that people can do some window shopping would be great. So I will support this, and I really appreciate it. I think it's perfect that it's a 4-week pilot program. It allows us to adjust and tweak along the way. And, you know, hopefully the weather is going to hold out. We're not going to get the Burlingame wind, and God will bless us with some beautiful sunny days, and we will hopefully make the most of it. So thanks for all the work.
Thank you, Councilmember Coulson. Great summary. Councilmember Brownrigg, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I look forward to supporting this measure. I think it's a great initiative, but I am confused. And so before I sort of give my summary remarks, I just want to be clear. The proposal is not to permit a car to go from one side of Lorton to the other, right? Where Starbucks is to where E Privé is. You can't cross. The staff proposal is not to allow cars to cross. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, because that map is confusing the way there are two maps, and one map.
Both Primrose and Lorton would be closed to through traffic, and then dead ends anyways, so that would also be stopped right at the corner.
So Park I don't think is problematic, but I am concerned, and I wondered how colleagues felt about that particular element of the decision. I am concerned that cars will get boxed in and find it difficult to do 3-point turns. And yet I understand the issue with pedestrian conflict. So I guess I wouldn't mind just a couple minutes of conversation with colleagues about that very specific part of the recommendation. You know, I think, again, I'm more concerned about cars sort of getting bottled up when they hit Burlingame Avenue if they're not allowed to cross at Lorton and Primrose. And I'm a little concerned that helping people find parking lots where they're maybe not used to it because they're so used to parking, you know, on the avenue, that it would help. So I don't know, with my colleagues' indulgence, could we just talk about that for a minute, or has everyone determined that this is the right thing to do to stop that that cross traffic?
I see Councilmember Ortiz has his hand up, and I have some thoughts as well, but let's have Councilmember Ortiz go ahead and
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg. I think that is an important topic, and I had a discussion with somebody after the economic development meeting last time, trying to picture what would happen at the end of Primrose if it was closed and right in front of the where the post office is, or where the coffee shop is, and it seems like there's going to be some problems. You know, it can be managed. I think it would work better if it was open. And I think that we can take measures to control pedestrians, because I mean, right now we have when the avenue's full, we still have that conflict of pedestrians crossing, and it seems that I think with occasional hiccups, it works fairly well. So my recommendation was always, or my preference was always, to keep them open. But I will defer to staff on that, and then we can see after the pilot to see how it really works, and then make a decision after that.
Thank you, Councilmember Ortiz. Councilmember Coulson, why don't you go ahead, and then I'll share some.
I think the Vice Mayor was first, and then I'm behind her.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor O'Brien.
Yeah, so I just want to echo Councilmember Ortiz. We did talk about this during our economic development meeting, and initially, you know, we did want it opened up. But in listening with Director Matuza, we do want to be very careful with pedestrians that are crossing the street. I think it's, you know, sometimes when a street is closed off, people aren't as aware of their surroundings. They relax. They're socializing, and they may not be paying attention. So I do think that the preference, at least for me at this point, is to keep them closed. Let's see how it goes during the pilot, and we can always change it, you know, if it poses a problem.
Thank you, Vice Mayor O'Brien. Councilmember Coulson.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the follow-up, Michael, because that actually was the question I was asking, and you're 100% right. When I was looking at the screen, I assumed that the slide up that showed the transition through was the one we were approving. So I do appreciate, because that was my question. I had originally assumed that the street was closed, like what we're actually talking about, the reality. And then when I saw the picture, I thought, oh, well, then it is closed, it is open. So I was confused, and I appreciate that. So the question I have, Syed, Dr. Matuza, is when the cars come down, first of all, will those parking spots be available, those 2 or 3 spots for people to park on, or are those going to be blocked off? Or, you know, or people can park and then they have to do a U-turn to get out. I'm just confused as to how that, because that's also dangerous for pedestrians. Like if you're, you know, people, if you're not expecting someone to come out and do a U-turn, like we're not allowed to do really downtown, and they do, that could be a startling thing.
Right. So that's a very good question. I think as you see, this proposal is developed on a very fast track basis. And our current thinking is to try to maximize as many parking spaces as possible near the intersections. If people are there, especially for delivery purposes, people want to park there, or to be able to take out parking for takeouts and all that, we want to make that parking available. However, if the street is closed, people can make a U-turn slowly. After they park, they can get out. It's not a big problem. The street will be closed off for, there will be multiple signage placed when you are approaching Donnelly. If you're going southbound on Primrose, when you approach Donnelly, there will be signs saying if you can't cross through, if you're going for through traffic, you would have to make a left turn. The street is closed ahead. So, but if you're going for parking there or accessing a business, you can certainly park. You can go beyond that point. And again, as I'd like to concur with the council, Vice Mayor O'Brien, because I think we need to see this, how this works, and if we need to make change, we need to make a change as part of the pilot program, because there is a balancing act between allowing traffic circulation as well as making sure the pedestrians are safe. So we have to place the signage in such a manner that we maximize the parking and we are able to allow people to circulate through. And people who have, once people realize that they can't go through Burlingame Avenue, they will find alternative ways. They will go on El Camino Real or to Howard Avenue, or they'll go on California Drive and go into Howard Avenue and access the parking lots if they have to go beyond. But if they have to go on to Burlingame Avenue, they either park on Chapin or Donnelly, one of those parking lots, and walk to Burlingame Avenue. And so that's how we see it at this time. If we see a problem, we have DBID to give us input. We will hear from businesses, and we have our police officers that they will also provide some input and feedback as to making any changes regarding the traffic control.
Thank you. That's really helpful. The one thing I might suggest, again, we don't have to do it right now, but the possibility that the few spaces on the Ave that are, say, up on near El Camino Real by the Walgreens, and then the couple that are on Primrose on either side before Donnelly, I mean, maybe, you know, a few of those, and then on Lorton become, you know, rather than permanent parking spots, they become, you know, maybe those are the 20-minute spots, temporary 20-minute spots for the people to pull in and get the fast food or their takeout or pick up their retail, and those turn over a little more. So it could be bad because there would be more people coming in and out and turning around because it's shorter time, but maybe that would work. So not to be solved today, but just something to think about.
Thank you for that. And I've lost my view here. Great comments by colleagues. And I don't see other hands up from colleagues, so I guess I'll weigh in. I appreciate the thoughtful discussion. I think where I land on the matter of the cross street, kind of what the Vice Mayor was saying, like let's give it a try, the pedestrian safety, if we want to put that. at the forefront. Let's see how it goes. I think this is the time, as we're sort of building back up, this is the time to try it in a more restrictive way. And let's see how the circulation goes, and maybe people can build habits where they don't expect to do that pass through. So we can always wait and observe. I think it would be, I think it'll be a great opportunity for messaging for the community to just really put it out there. What sort of like best practices, expectations of as we announce it in our e-news, how we need to, you know, pay attention and be super safe around all these various aspects, and which streets are going to be closed. And if people want to provide feedback, maybe even have like an email address where it's like a certain comment that can go directly regarding this particular street closure, or they could just, where they can send information and feedback, and then we can kind of consider and amend if we need to. But it's a very exciting opportunity, and I think to have a cohesive avenue and see how it goes is just a really, really exciting thing. And we'll hopefully see a lot of vibrancy for all the retailers and the restaurants on the avenue. So I fully support it too, and appreciate the hard work that's been done by the subcommittee and by staff on this proposal at such a challenging time. So with that, we have some findings to make. It sounds like there's support for giving it a try. We also have a finding, and I've of course misplaced the language, that this is for Madam City Attorney for public safety and health.
Yes, so the required finding is that the closure of the street is for the health and safety of the public who will be using it during these this temporary program.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, you do have a hand up from Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you. Councilmember Brownrigg, go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I did want to make a couple of editorial comments after teasing out the question of cross traffic. And I appreciate my colleagues' conversation about that, and especially the Vice Mayor's point that we can make adjustments. I think that's an important one. I'll just say that I think early on, we'll want to make sure our police are doing putting a little more extra time into making sure traffic patterns are safe. For example, I worry that a frustrated motorist might decide to peel through one of the parking lots on the south side of Burlingame Avenue to get back out, you know, and that's a whole different pedestrian motorist conflict. But I'm comfortable with the notion of closing the whole avenue. I do want to address, and I'll use this as a way to make a motion to approve the staff report. I do want to address Mr. Malouf's comments. It is the case that not every shopping district where the road is closed is successful. In fact, across the country over the years, there have been a number of failures. And there's a terrific report out of Nashville from about 8 years ago when they studied, or Memphis, when they studied closing the road. And one of the great dynamics, as Councilwoman Colson puts her finger on, is whether you're a college town. College towns have way higher success rates because they have so many people out in the street. You know, and so I think, but to Mr. Malouf's concerns, I think this recommendation of a 3-day closure, basically a weekend closure, is, and especially given the level of public support that we've all received, generally, you know, 3-1, 4-1 in favor, I think shows that the public is ready to embrace a pedestrian street like this. And it will be a really interesting test, and it's only 4 weeks. And we'll be able to see whether we have choked off commerce and choked off shoppers, or we've encouraged shoppers and encouraged pedestrian interest. I think we all realize retail is going to change in the years ahead, and this could be part of the solution. So I'm excited to give it a try. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation on the basis that our commerce needs to be able to expand, especially our restaurants and entertainment need to be able to expand to meet the public health requirements of social distancing. And so to be in business, to be able to give them the public street to serve their patrons and their customers is in the public interest and is clearly a matter of public health. And so with that in mind, I make a motion to approve this temporary plan.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion made by Councilmember Brownrigg with that particular finding, seconded by Vice Mayor O'Brien. Any further comments on the motion before we take a roll call vote? I think my only other comment, and thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg, for those remarks. I think not only is the public ready to embrace or at least try a pedestrian street, I think the public is throwing their arms around all businesses in our downtown areas. So hopefully they will embrace and make extra effort to come and frequent all the restaurants and the retailers there to help bring our downtown and our business community back. So with that, Madam City Clerk, let's do our roll call vote.
Member Colson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Councilmember Ortiz,
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Brien,
Yes.
Mayor Beach.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And staff, if we could just watch the level of the bike rack usage and see if we need to put more bike racks downtown as a result. Wouldn't that be an exciting problem to have if we had a parking problem for cyclists with the closure of the street? So we'll monitor that as well. With that, we are on now, and we thank colleagues and staff for making time for this special meeting. We don't normally hold meetings on Tuesdays in between other regular meetings, but we sincerely appreciate pulling together so that we could respond to this issue quickly. We thank members of the public and the business community for engaging and even for being with us here tonight to participate in the discussion. Item number 10, staff reports and communications.
Do you have a hand raised from Syed?
Yes, Director Martuza, go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor and Council, I'd like to just inform you that staff will move as fast as we can on this. Given we have a lot of work to do to put the signage enclosure, I don't know we can close this Friday, but if we can't close this Friday, we would do it the next Friday. So I just wanted you to know, and if you have any comments, concerns, I would like to know.
Thank you for the insight on that timeline. Colleagues, do we have any other comments on that? Don't see any. Thank you. All right. So we are moving then on to staff reports and communications, of which we don't see any here. Item number 11, council committee and activities reports and announcements. Do we have any? I know we've got a meeting coming up on Monday. Are there any other quick reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to future agenda items. And I did want to take an opportunity to share with colleagues and members of the public that the city manager, the city attorney, the chief of police, and I met yesterday to discuss how to just response to current events. And on Monday, we will be receiving a staff report with an update for a process for reviewing police policies and procedures. And together we'll also consider whether or not to support the mayor's and council members' pledge proposed by the Obama Foundation in addressing use of force policies. And so we'll have a discussion item on process for that on Monday. Some members of the public, many have written us with concerns on that. Any other future agenda items? Seeing none at this time, we have item number 13, acknowledgements. I did have one member of the public, actually two members of the public write in about a wonderful community member we lost, Ms. Jeannie Gilmore, on June 4th. She passed away, and I have a few words written in, but I wanted to see if colleagues have any other members that we should close and adjourn in honor of besides Ms. Gilmore. Seeing none, then I will take this opportunity to thank former Mayor Terry Nagel for writing in, and also former council member John Root. Both of them were very good friends of Ms. Jeannie Gilmore, who died on June 4th at age 95. And I suspect that some colleagues join me tonight personally did not. I'll make sure we give you an opportunity, anybody who would like to say a few words. But in summary, she was a very active member of the Burlingame community, Served on the Beautification Commission for many, many years. She also served on one of the Burlingame Elementary School District's bond oversight committees. Some words that summarized her personality and her demeanor was always a smile on her face, positive outlook, and a real interest and concern for everyone. A truly remarkable woman, feisty, compassionate, and good-hearted. And she was actually honored in 2008 when we had our centennial celebration here in the community. And Mayor Nagel at the time honored her as one of the heroes, extraordinary Burlingamers, for her accomplishments. And a write-up that was read at that time, she had a nickname in town called the Unsinkable Jeannie Gilmore after her remarkable experience in 1980 of a burn for which she and her mother were evacuated. They huddled in a crowded lifeboat in the Gulf of Alaska. I looked this up on the internet today. It's really quite a remarkable story. They're 14 or 18 hours without food, water, life jackets, or a motor, and considered this rescue of all 504 passengers to be one of the most successful rescues of all time. And we had the unsinkable Jeannie Gilmore part of that. She certainly was a local hero in more ways than one. So I just want to give colleagues an opportunity who may have known her personally to say a remembrance, and then we can close if they wish, and if not, we'll close with a moment of silence. So with that, we'll take a moment of silence and we'll remember Ms. Jeannie Gilmore. Thank you, colleagues and staff. We appreciate your time tonight. We will adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:12. Thanks for a great productive meeting. Have a good one.